The BBC Micro really needs no introduction. Acorn winning the BBC contract over Sinclair is well documented on the internet, in fact and dramatised fiction. But for me, my first sight of the BBC Micro was at a friend's house. He had upgraded from his ZX80, and what an upgrade that was. Compared to my ZX81, the BBC clearly outclassed it in all respects, except perhaps for looks. So as there are ways now to run BBC Micro code on the Spectrum Next, it was only a matter of time before I took a look. There are two ways to run BBC code on the Next, so if you wanted to do more than look at the BBC on emulators, there are ways if you are in the Next world. The first is using the unofficial BBC core, which is discussed on the Spectrum Next unofficial FPGA Cores Facebook group. But I'm not quite ready to install this on my Next yet. The second is using Break Into the Program's Next BBC Basic program. And I thought I'd start with this to begin playing with the BBC. This comes included on the latest Next distro released at the end of 2024. So if you've installed the distro on your Next, you already have BBC Basic on your Next. Looking at the distro files on my PC and searching them for the word BBC, I could see there was a .nex file, which is the program, a BBC Basic manual, and also some .bbc example programs. Go to the manual folder, there is the BBC Basic manual.md file to have a look through, and also a BBC Basic.txt file by R.T. Russell, who wrote the original version of Z80 BBC Basic. But rather than starting on the Next, I decided to start looking at Break Into the Program's work from his GitHub repo in Cspect. Going into the releases folder, there are a number of releases. I picked the latest, version 0.16, which matches with the one described in the Next release documentation. I downloaded this to my PC and then used hdfmonkey to push it to my Cspect image. I renamed the file to bbc.next so there's a bit less typing. While I was doing that, I pushed an example BBC Basic program, cosmicinvaders.bbc, to the image to have a look at also. More of that later. So starting off in Cspect, going into the games folder and then into the Next folder, I pushed the bbc.nex program into my Next folder. So running that takes me into BBC Basic. So first of all, a print program. The speech marks on the PC are Shift P. So it prints hi OK. And then trying to write a small program. Print hi. And then running that. Displays hi and bye with a strange character on the end due to my typo. If I then try and save that as hi.bbc, and then the dot command is on a PC is Shift M, and the comma is Shift N. So if I save that as hi.bbc, then if I restart Cspect and go back into that folder, see I've now got hi.bbc saved onto my Cspect image, and then going back into bbc.nex, I can then load hi.bbc, list the program is there, I can run it. So that shows saving and loading BBC programs. So I mentioned that I'd uploaded a BBC program that I'd downloaded off the internet, cosmicinvaders.bbc. So I'll try and load that one in. and then list that. So it's got the program, quite a big program. Eventually I'll get to the end. So maybe 300 lines of code there. So if I try and run that, see if that'll run. And it's complaining about line 80. If I try and list 80, it's complaining about the envelope command. So it would seem that this version of BBC Basic will only run a subset of the commands. So I think I need to run this on the BBC core. But that gives me confidence that the BBC Basic program will run on Cspect. Okay, so jumping onto the next, the BBC Basic program is in the folder Apps, Dev, and BBC Basic. So we've got the NEX file, and you've also got some examples. So one of the programs is animal.bbc, so I'll try that in a minute. Quite a few other examples to try. So then if I run bbcbasic.nex, starts up. First of all, let's try print height. That works okay. Then I'll try print height. Run that. That works as well. So then I'll try and load in the example program that we're just looking at for animal. So you need the folder example / animal.bbc and then list that. So there's the program, much shorter program, about 140 lines there. So I'll try and run that. So this is guess the animal game. So are you thinking of an animal? Yeah, I'm thinking of a tiger. So I'll say yes. Does it fly? No. Is it a goldfish? No. Okay, I give up. Tell me what animal you were thinking of. So I was thinking of a tiger. And then please tell me a question that would distinguish a tiger from a goldfish. So it's building up a series of questions to identify animals. So at that point I think that's enough. You can see that the BBC Basic from loading to the program runs okay on the next. So there's something to start with if you're interested in the BBC on the next. Maybe in the future I'll look at the alternative core for the BBC, but leave that for now. So I hope that was interesting, and thanks for watching.